Good evening and welcome. I am Amarachi Ubani. Tonight, federal government gets a $3 billion loan from the World Bank and International Monetary Fund to reform the nation's power sector. Impeached Deputy Governor of Kogi State, Simon Achuba, describes his impeachment as illegal and unconstitutional and says he remains the state's deputy governor. Residents of Isheri North Estate community in Lagos State groan under persistent flood, which they lament have driven many of them out of their homes. And the British government insists October 31st deadline for Brexit stands in spite of major setbacks. Minister of Finance, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, has announced the approval of $3 billion loan from the World Bank to reform the nation's power sector. A first approval, according to her, will be ready by April 2020. Mrs. Ahmed, who announced the approval of the loan at a news conference to wrap up the World Bank IMF annual meetings in Washington, D.C., explains that the loan is expected to improve power supply in the country.
Nation's power sector has most recently come under attack. Many Nigerians have had to grapple with the epileptic power supply, overbilling, non-availability of prepaid meters, amongst other challenges. At one of the sessions during the week-long World Bank IMF annual meetings, officials of both organizations raised concerns about the electricity sector in Nigeria. It, however, appears that the federal government is ready to tackle the problem headlong. Speaking at this news conference to wrap up the meetings, the Minister of Finance highlights a reform of the power sector.
We put a request for financing of the power sector at a range of 1.5 billion to 4 billion. At the end of the day, it looks like we will be looking at a funding size of $3 billion that will be provided in 4 tranches of $750 million each. And our plan is that the team will be able to go to the World Bank for the approval of the first tranche in April 2020.
On the World Economic Outlook, emerging economies were advised to harness their potentials on trade and non-oil revenues to achieve results. Nigeria's central bank governor assures that the nation's banks are strong and will continue to provide support for the real sector of the economy.
The central bank has, as a matter of policy since 2015, tried to avoid being sensational about stress testing. Stress testing has become part of our daily or a normal routine, trying to check the strategic health of all the banks in the industry. And so what you will find is that from time to time, maybe one bank feels one ratio, we advise that the bank should improve on that ratio, whether it's capital adequacy or liquidity or other forms of prudential ratios that would prescribe to the banking industry.
Responding to questions for the commencement of charges for USSD code, the central bank governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, explains that the Apex Bank does not in any way support the increase.
And I have told the banks that we will not allow this to happen. The banks are the people who give this business to the telecom companies. And I leave the banks and the telecom companies to engage. We would like, and I have told the banks that they have to move their business, move their traffic to a telecom company that is ready to provide it at the lowest possible, if not zero cost. And that's where we stand, and we must achieve it.
While key reforms are still expected to improve the nation's economy, experts caution that it must equally have an impact on the lives of the people.
The impeached Deputy Governor of Kogi State, Simon Achuba, has described his ousting from office as unconstitutional. According to Mr. Achuba, the entire process is illegal and will not stand the test of time. He laments how he was forced out of his official residence even before the purported impeachment, insisting he remains the state's deputy governor. Mr. Achuba was speaking with journalists shortly after vacating his official residence in Lokoja, the state capital.
The continuation of the lawlessness As far as I know, I'm the sitting deputy governor of Kogi State. And there is no other person except through the process of another impeachment and I'm found guilty. There is nothing that can move me from being the deputy governor of Kogi State. So he will be acting lawlessly and in an affront to the Constitution. It will be an exercise in futility. And I want to call upon the law enforcement agents to wade in and stop him from embarrassing the people of Kogi State and Nigerians, because it's an embarrassment.
An Assistant Commissioner of Police, Musa Rambo, has been kidnapped by gunmen in Kaduna State. Mr. Rambo, who is the commander of the Suleja Area Command in Niger State, is said to have been traveling to Jos, the Plateau State capital, in his private vehicle when he was abducted. Statement from the Kaduna Police Command spokesperson, DSP Yakubu Sabo, says the area commander was abducted on Saturday around Konok Bridge, a border area between Kaduna and Nasarawa states. He explains that the contact has been established with the kidnappers, who are demanding ransom, while efforts are ongoing to rescue the police officer and arrest the culprits. Mr. Sabo is also asking the public to support the police with relevant information that would assist in containing the recent security challenges. The effect of Lagos flooding is no longer news. What is now worrisome is the constant threat to residents who are living on the edge on a daily basis. In Ishari North and Magboro border communities lying between Lagos and Ogun States, the situation has become worrisome even more, as some residents are already moving out of their homes. They are, however, calling on government to salvage the situation urgently.
This is the present state of Ishari North Estate community in Lagos State. Its major roads are flooded, and with cars getting submerged, canoes appear to be the preferable means of transportation for those residing in inner estates. A trip is said to stand at 2,000 naira. Residents feel neglected by the government for not notifying its citizens before taking certain actions, with special emphasis on the Oyo River Dam.
It's probably, maybe I've been lucky thus far. Maybe there's one around the corner, you never can tell. But it's amazing that nobody is saying anything. That's the biggest thing that I want to take away. Nobody says anything.
The flood has forced this church to move its service elsewhere. Another community in the axis suffering the same fate is Magboro. This used to be a road, but now reverses the case as it has become waterlogged.
Due to the flood, somebody died just behind us there, fell into the stream there. So before anybody could rescue him, he had died.
A makeshift bridge had been constructed by the community to make life safer. The residents are looking to the government to do more than listen and focus on actions that will save lives and property.
We're now being joined on the news at 10 by Mr. Ola Oresonya, who is an environmental consultant and the former managing director of the Lagos State Waste Management Authority, to look at the persistent floods in parts of the country, particularly here in Lagos, where residents seem to be having it, much worse than many areas. So the rains are not stopping. The meteorologists had already predicted, we would have floods and heavy rains this time of the year, especially this year. People are now helpless. They don't know where to go. Their homes are flooded. Property is destroyed. We didn't prepare adequately for this, did we?
Well, I think it's becoming a national problem. We don't really appreciate knowledge-based information and the rest of it. We would rather depend on insinuations, gossips, and so we're so cynical to the extent that even we ignore good warnings. I remember NEMA has given this warning, and warning signal has been sent to everybody that, look, those people living within the floodplains, they're going to have this, and that people should evacuate before this rain comes. So the warning has always been there. But one thing that has been lacking is the persistence, you know, so that maybe government should have done more in ensuring that we not give people kind of option. People were asked to move, but move where? The options were not really clear. Yeah. So maybe that's just, but that there was no warning. No, there were warning.
Yeah, but okay, maybe. Well, I'm just thinking. You know, there could have been more efforts, as you say. Yes. Drainages could have been cleared. You know, in preparation for the rains, because if water does not find, water will always find its way, rather. So if it doesn't find anywhere to go, it would remain where it is. But apart from the losses of homes and other inconveniences, could residents? How could they have kept themselves safe, you know, from these rains? Fortunately, there have been no reported deaths. But, you know, people really have no place to go. And they have only their homes, which are now ruined. I mean.
Well, I think, for example, I know Lagos has a resettlement center where people who are vulnerable for disasters like this will have probably applied and probably will have moved there. So, and I think some kind of a relief has been done on the Lagos State side. Then I think on Ogun State side, I'm sure the government is, you know, the government is just settling in, really. So we need to give them the benefit of doubt that probably the government needs time to really arrange for things like the resettlement plan for people with options. But from what we can see from the clip there, people are actually moving themselves. So because they've been warned that this is going to happen. And especially people who built beside the riverbanks and within the floodplains. Yeah.
And the people also have to be careful, though, you know, falling wires, you know, the poles, electric poles that are falling. People also have to be careful about electric shocks, because while you're moving through water, you're really not seeing where you're going. Right. And, you know, there's a lot of danger there.
Yes, I know that. But we really need to appreciate these. Probably unconsciously, people were prepared because they were aware. So that's why we didn't have a case of any death so far, because some people probably would have moved before then. The only other area that has been of real concern is the Kara Market. Kara Market is not supposed to be there on the first instance. So these are people who are actually encroaching on the bank of the river, and whatever economy they are practicing out there is actually impeding on the flow of that river. So they're actually encroaching on the pathway of the river. And you have a lot of poor sanitary habits by people also, because some of these flood channels, you know, they are channels by which this water is supposed to flow out. We've been using refuse to block some of these channels, and this has been, the government has been shouting about this, that look, when the problem comes, all right, it's not just going to be government. You're going to feel the pain.
Yeah, and I remember mentioning that earlier, but there's also the scare of reptiles. Some people have found a few of them.
Oh, sure. Reptiles will always have to
unfortunately.
Move. Exactly.
Yeah, but that's really scary, isn't it? I mean,
well, it's scary, but it's predictable. We knew this was going to happen. So, I mean, NEMA has been talking about this 4 or 5 months ago. So it's an annual thing. It's going to happen. Precipitation, the volume of rain we're going to have, we predicted it. All right, and you already know that the dams are going to open. Upstream, they're going to open this dam, and it must go into those natural floodplains. Where we are calling, you see, this natural plain have been encroached upon by people. Human activities is the one really encroaching on the natural floodplain. And because most of this, the river itself has not been dredged, so you have siltation that's already expanding, allowing the expansion of this flooding, splashing beyond the conventional banks, because most of these river bays, I mean, the base of the rivers is already silted up.
Well, we have to look forward to next year. I hope we can, with meteorologists predicting whatever weather we should be expecting in the near future. But thank you so much, Mr. Ola Oresanya, for speaking with us on the News 18. I appreciate you being here tonight. In part 2, after the break, President Muhammadu Buhari departs Nigeria on Monday for Russia to attend the Russia-Africa Summit on security, trade and investment, and gas production. Stay with us.